Well, South Africa is facing both an energy crisis as well as a crisis of unemployment. In the country now, joblessness has reached record levels and Eskom's financial problems continue to worsen. Despite this, well, Guillaume Doan from Africa Oil and Power believes the country has the potential to both create jobs and meet the energy needs of Africa. He's joining us now live from our studios in Cape Town. Mr. Doan, good morning. By the way, he's the Chief Executive of Africa Oil and Power. Why do you believe that the energy sector can help us create jobs?
Well, first of all, good morning, Dan, and thank you very much for having me on the show. Look, South Africa has a tremendous opportunity to grow its energy sector and stimulate job growth in the country if it just goes in the right direction. First and foremost, utilizing the hydrocarbon sector, which South Africa has not been able to harness up until now. But luckily, we had a very large oil and gas discovery offshore in February that has brought a lot of legitimacy and optimism to the oil and gas industry of South Africa. And probably within 2 or 3 years, we might be able to see the full extent of the possibility here in the country. We're talking about a country which is the largest importer of fuel in the entire continent, which trades with other countries, refined products. So there's an opportunity and a foundation for South Africa to grow that. And in terms of regulation, in terms of investment attractiveness, South Africa continues to be the leader in the continent and will continue to be so.
But I mean, for those things or those opportunities to be realized, Guillaume, you need the energy sector to work. Currently, you hear the stories coming out of our biggest energy enterprise, Eskom. You are not really optimistic. I mean, I don't become very optimistic when I hear about the troubles at Eskom. How can we make this energy sector actually work?
Well, it's true. The situation at Eskom is nothing but troubling. The catastrophic financial situation, the dire operational situation, but what's even worse is the lack of trust, the broken trust that exists between Eskom and the government of South Africa and Eskom and the public. So I think what's needed here is to rebuild the trust. I think if you see across the board at South Africa's state-owned enterprises in the energy industry, you're seeing chief executives who are in an acting capacity. So I certainly don't envy the challenge that the new CEO, Jabu Mabuza, has ahead of him. But also, it's important that the leadership at Eskom be given trust to go out and take the bold action that's necessary to reform this company that's in a troubled situation. But in any case, South Africa continues to lead the continent in terms of electrification rates. This has been an increase that has been taking place, a general trend over the last 20, 30 years. So the situation, while it might look troubling for the National Electricity Company, is better than what you see across the continent.
Now, to make energy work, you can't ignore the impact of technology advances. And when I say this, on the back of my mind, I'm thinking in the banking sector now, because of technological advances, we could be facing a strike next month because workers saying we're going to be losing jobs because of technology. But in the energy sector, digital technology, can it help?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, the less that you have to rely on the power grid itself by incorporating smart metering, off-grid technologies, even renewable power solutions that don't involve bringing in the National Electricity Company and people can just install in their homes. All of this has really the power to bring new energy access to communities that don't have access to electricity currently, and to bring in efficiencies that will put less burden on the existing power load.
What about renewable sources of energy? I mean, we've had the noise recently about the IPPs involving Eskom and people saying all kinds of things. But I mean, the future is renewable sources, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're talking South Africa depends on coal for about 90% of its electricity needs, and that's just not sustainable. There is a global general trend that is moving away from coal and more to renewables and gas. So South Africa has a very, very large challenge on its hands. One, it's to be able to move away from coal, to take these aging, ailing power facilities and transition them to newer facilities that run on cheaper and cleaner fuel. But the accomplishments in renewables have been pretty astounding. We're talking 6 gigawatts that have been brought in just in the last 5 years, and a very, very strong IPP program in South Africa that is the envy of the rest of the continent.
Yeah. You very briefly and finally, Guillaume, you're going to be having the your Africa Oil and Power 2019 conference. It's going to take part in Cape Town. It's going to take place in Cape Town in October this year under the theme Make Energy Work. Now, listening to you as you responded now, is it a fair assumption that the energy sector in South Africa, at least, is becoming stronger, despite the challenges that we know that the utility, Eskom, is facing?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, for us, Make Energy Work is also about trying to see the energy industry through the lens of job creation. And I think too often we lose sight of what oil and gas and energy resources are for. It's not just for economic growth and exporting oil and gas in their crude states to countries far off and re-importing them in the refined state. It's about creating value within the country for the people who own the resources. So for us, we're utilizing this conference as an opportunity for us to put the focus back on what oil and gas resources are for. And understanding that if a country like South Africa makes a very large resource discovery, that we should be thinking about what we're going to do with that resource in 5 years when we have the opportunity to monetize them. Are we going to export that oil and gas to the United States, to Europe, to China in its crude state, or are we going to keep it locally for refining capacity, for petrochemicals, for local industry? That's the job creation that we're talking about to really maximize the value of these oil and gas resources and bring the power to the people.
Thank you very much for taking time to be on my program today with Den Moyane. That's the CEO of Africa Oil and Power, Guillaume Doe. Now,